Hello and warm greetings. Welcome to Analyst presented to you by Vajiram and Ravi. Here we discuss 7 articles in 2 different sections, consolidating your current affair preparation for UPSC CSE at one place. In the first analysis section, we discuss the issue of women representation in judiciary. We discuss this in the context of occasion of International Women's Day. CGI has exhorted the High Courts for enhancing women representation in judiciary. Next up, we discuss the issue of cash transfer scheme, Boon or Bane. We discuss this in light of Punjab government launching a partial UBI for women, triggering debate on legality, benefits and viability of such schemes. Next up, in the prelims pointer section, we discuss 5 articles with a lot of value addition in light of your upcoming prelims 2026. So stay tuned. Starting with the first topic, women representation in judiciary. Yesterday, on the occasion of International Women's Day, Chief Justice of India was addressing a conference known as Bridging the Bench Gap, Women and Judicial Leadership. At this occasion, he exhorted the High Courts to increase the presence of women in the judicial positions. We see this is a persistent problem in our history, and UPSC itself has been cognizant of it, and they have asked one question in the year 2021 where they asked to discuss the desirability of greater representation of women in higher judiciary and how it would ensure diversity, equity and inclusiveness. So today we take a look at this issue comprehensively and address the matter of the fact. If we talk about the present situation in judiciary, only one of the Supreme Court judges is woman out of the 33 present strength, out of the 34 sanctioned strength. The situation is also grim at the level of High Courts because only 14.85% of the judges are women. Throughout the history of Supreme Court, we have seen only 11 women being elevated to the level of a Supreme Court judges and not even a single women Chief Justice of India till now. At the level of district judiciary, the situation is little bit better. We see 37% of the judges being women, but then there is lot of diversity and lot of regional inequity in the representation of women. If we take a look at the various High Courts of India, Punjab and Haryana High Court for some reasons is faring better as it has around 18 out of the 61 judges, that is around 30% of the judges are women. Compare that to the states like Madhya Pradesh. In Madhya Pradesh, we see that only 3% of the judges of High Court are women. This showcases a wide chasm of inequity present in our society that is reflected in the women being present in the judiciary itself. Compare that to the global standard, we see countries of Europe faring far better than us, and they have around 50% representation of women in the judicial positions. And no wonder that India ranks 131 in the gender gap index, whereas countries of Europe rank first. Now, why does this matter? Chief Justice himself addressed the issue of highlighting the significance of women leadership position in judiciary. He said that when half of India's position look to institutions which are entrusted with the responsibility of guarding constitution and they find only limited reflection of its own experience, then the concern transcends the statistics. That when people who are looking up to the Supreme Court and they are finding that people who are manning the Supreme Court, the judges themselves, they are not reflecting the experience that these victims or plaintiffs have themselves suffered, they cannot accept much of justice from them. There is erosion of social capital at the level of Supreme Court. That is a prime importance that it is beyond any numbers that we have just discussed today. There is not the issue of preference, but the very foundation of justice is at stake here. You identify with the preamble. In preamble, we talk about justice as an idea. We need justice which is social, political and economic. And when we talk about equality, we want equality of status and opportunity. But that means nothing when the equality of status and equality of opportunity as working as a judge is not given to half of the population of India. There is a need for more women judges because they are bound to bring more insights and perspectives when they are giving judicial reasonings. We saw that proved very well during the 2018 Sabrimala judgment, where we saw Justice Indu Malhotra as one of the judges on the bench, and she gave her own unique perspective on the Sabrimala issue, not necessarily in the favor or in the disfavor of women, but the idea is giving a layer of judgments, giving a layer of arguments and substantiation to the various social and legal issues. We need to talk about also the presence of women judges. The presence of a gender diverse judiciary would enhance the competition, enhance the confidence of the people who are coming to the court. They would feel very comfortable seeing that their gender is also represented on the bench. Imagine the comfort, imagine the confidence of a transgender person when he would see a transgender judge himself or herself is ruling on the bench. then it would ensure the greater social capital that we just now see being eroded in our country. Next up, women would act as an agent of change because they would disrupt the traditional setup of collusive corruption. Because of entrenched patriarchy in the judiciary, there have been people who have been manning this court. Then when newer crop of judges would come, newer women would come, there is possibility that corruption in judiciary would reduce. It would also inspire the next generation of female judges when they would be holding the office of judiciary. We have not seen any Chief Justice of India being women till now, and that is set to change in the year 2027, when we would see Justice Nagratna being the first Chief Justice of India in the year 2027. We need to ensure that the significance of women's representation in judiciary are not overshadowed by the challenges that they would face. What kind of challenges? We have seen challenges occurring in the representation of women in judiciary since time immemorial. The last instance, the first codified instance was Bradwell versus State of Illinois. Case came from the state of United States of America. In the year 1872, one woman known as Myra Bradwell, she went to the Supreme Court of USA and asked for upturning of a judgment given by the Court of Illinois, which did not allow her to practice legal profession because apparently she was a woman, and that was the only thing not working in her favor. And Supreme Court of USA at that time did not even allow her to practice profession of law. That showcases that the patriarchy has been entrenched, especially in this legal profession as well. And things do not seem to be changing very well even after 150 years have passed since that judgment, because we are seeing that only handful of judges have been elevated to the level of Supreme Court judges. Justice B.R. Gavai in this context has said that when we do not have as much women, we have seen certain cases of misogyny being represented in the judicial pronouncement at various high court as well as the lower court trial courts. For example, one case came from Prayagraj High Court, Allahabad High Court, where judges would have made some inappropriate remarks against the victim itself. Then the question was taken up by the Chief Justice of India at that time, Mr. B.R. Gavai. Justice B.R. Gavai then questioned that what is this discussion that she invited trouble. This is apparently what the judge of the High Court had said. This is showcasing that there is need for greater gender sensitivity among the judges, and that would only happen when we have more women present on the bench. Then we need to ensure that the cause of this concern is that the stream itself is very narrow, so we cannot have very broad-based bench. If you see that at the top level we have only 11 judges of Supreme Court being women. That is also true because at the bottom of it we have only 15% of advocates being enrolled as women. When 85% of advocates who are enrolled as men only, then there is very high chances that when they are elevated to the top level, we would not see as many women judges there. So we have to broad base the base itself. We have to enhance greater enrollment of women in the advocate, in the bar councils itself. There is non-transparent collegium functioning. That is another issue why we are not seeing much women judges at Supreme Court and High Court, because they are not proactively being transparent about what were the reasons why somebody as a candidate was not at the level of judge of a High Court or Supreme Court, and there is no interference of other section, for example the Parliament as well as the executive. Thus, there are certain concerns regarding this presence of women in judiciary. They are not allowing it, and there has been no effort on the part of giving affirmative action to women in judiciary. We have seen 106 constitutional amendment coming for presence of women in the legislatures, for example Parliament as well as state legislature, but no such effort has been done at the highest level of judiciary. We are seeing that women themselves, the women judges, even if they are selected in the district judiciary, they are bound down by the concerns of care burden. They are supposed to give more time to the family, and there are also gender division of work as well. If a female judge is married and she is starting a family, if she is getting pregnant, then there are high chances that her career in judiciary would be disrupted. There would be a gap in the career, and that would not fare well for her elevation to the higher level. Then we have lack of infrastructure, not just for judges but also for Supreme Court and High Court as well as lower courts staff as well. We are seeing that even 73% of all support staff, they did not even have a toilet. An attached toilet was not available to them. We have lack of digitalization of these courts as well. Even 50% of judges do not have government provided accommodation. That means only half of them have that. This is showcasing a wider problem in judiciary, which is about representation, and not just of women. We see this happening with the SCs, only 23 SCs, 10 STs, 76 OBCs and 36 minorities along with 111 women have been part of the 790 High Court judges. This showcases that representation of the weaker section, of the vulnerable section, has been a persistent problem at the judicial levels. Then there are certain things we have to be appreciative of. There have been certain efforts that have been taken in this direction, both at the level of judiciary as well as the executive as well as the global level. If we see that judiciary itself has brought a handbook on combating gender stereotypes, where they are using more gender appropriate keywords, more gender appropriate language. For example, they have transformed, instead of writing about dutiful wife or giving adjective of faithful wife or obedient wife, they are just mentioning it as wife, that you do not have to characterize the nature of a woman by using such adjective. On the level of executive, there is a central sponsored scheme that exists for promotion of judicial infrastructure at district judiciary level. Around 11,000 crore have been spent on it since the year 1993 when this scheme was launched. On the other hand, at the global level, there has been launching of a gender justice platform, which is an organization, which is an effort led by UN Women as well as the UNDP, started in the year 2022 to bring more gender justice in the justice delivery system. We have to be ensuring that this momentum of steps taken should be continued by taking more new steps with a lot of imagination. As CGI himself has emphasized, that institutional intent is not sufficient, it must be complemented with the institutional imagination. How? If we see that more number of women judges are not in high court, then when we are elevating more judges to the high courts and we are not finding adequate candidates from the high court itself, they must expand the zone and they must look for Supreme Court judges, Supreme Court advocates who are practicing in the Supreme Court. They must also be considered for elevation to the level of high court judges. Then there must be reservation at the level of bar council itself. At least 30% reservation of bar council seats should be reserved for women itself. That would showcase that the pipeline that we were talking about, which was narrow at its base, it would expand, it would widen, and we would see more women being elevated to the level of higher judiciary. Then we have to ensure the retention of judges as well. As we saw that infrastructure is a problem, that is something that can be fixed with a lot of funding, lot of implementation being streamlined. Then we need to ensure that affirmative action at court also takes place. We could have that implemented by way of All India Judicial Services. They could have conducted a simple exam like UPSC does, where we could apply the norms of reservation and we would see more representation of these diverse section. As we saw that Dalits as well as STs, women, OBCs, minorities, they are not being adequately represented in the judiciary. Then above all, we need to have women-led justice as the norm. We need as a social acceptance of this idea that women would be leading the norm of justice. Women judges would be guiding the justice in the society, and society has to come to term with it. Society has to rather encourage this thing, because if we are just going to have presence of women, then it would not ensure that agenda of change would happen. The women judges, they need to bring the social change, they need to bring the idea of transformative constitutionalism in practice, that require a social movement at the level of masses, at the level of bar council itself. More women advocate would translate to more district judges, more high court women judges, and then more Supreme Court judges, leading to the level of women Chief Justice of India. This is something that we emphasize today, because tomorrow itself we have International Day of Women Judges celebrated by UN every year on 10th of March, and this is something that we must look up to. When we go to the idea of Viksit Bharat by 2047, we need that Viksit Bharat to be also a gender just Bharat. Next up, we have this mains practice question for you. Kindly attempt it and get it evaluated from your mentors. We move to the next article. The next article is cash transfer schemes, Boon or Bane. As Punjab government has just launched a new scheme which is known as the Mawa Tiya Satkar Yojana, which is basically mothers and daughters respect scheme. It is launched yesterday with a budgetary allocation of 9,300 crores on the occasion of International Women's Day again, because it is showcasing the respect that the Punjab government apparently is showering on the women. They are respecting, they are recognizing the work that women have done for the society. How they are doing that? By giving them doles, by giving them cash payment of 1,000 rupees monthly. For SC women, the amount is 1,500. The scheme is unique in terms of its targeting coverage. As per the government, it is targeting around 97% of the population of Punjab. It is only excluding certain people who are government employee or have been government employee, who are current or former MPs or MLAs, who are income tax pays. Only those people are excluded from these schemes. The rest of them, they are covered. Also, it is important to note down that people who are even covered in another social security scheme, for example, old age pensions, widow pension, disability pension, if they are getting, they would still be eligible to get money, to get cash under this Mawa Tiya Satkar Yojana. Out of the Punjab government's budget of 2.6 lakh crore, they have solely allocated 9,300 crore for this scheme, and this is a big deal. Compare this to other schemes that are running across our nation. Even in the adjoining state of Haryana, there is a scheme known as Deen Dayal Lado Lakshmi Yojana, which is providing 2,100 monthly assistance to the women who are aged 23 to 60 years. There is also very narrow coverage because they are specifically targeting the families which have less than 1 lakh rupees annual income. On the other hand, this Punjab scheme is much more broad based. So, this is moving into the direction which we know as the universal basic income, because it is targeting majorly the whole of the population of women population of Punjab. Now, to understand this further, we need to identify what is this UBI. UBI, or Universal Basic Income, is the idea or a government program in which every adult citizen receives a set of amount of money regularly without any prerequisite, without any condition that you have to first do this thing, get vaccinated or enroll your students in school. Nothing like this. You are just supposed to get money from the government every month at a specified date. A specified amount of money would be credited to your bank account. That is universal basic income. This is not a new idea. This has been a historically accurate idea since the time of 16th century. We have heard the term of utopia, the land where there is no sorrow, where everything is hunky-dory. In that novel by Thomas More, he himself identified that it would be a society would become utopian if we have such idea of universal basic income. Everybody is getting some money without any precondition. This was again identified in the 20th century when we have Martin Luther King, as well as in the 18th century before American Revolution when Thomas Paine identified with this idea. But of late, right now, when we see the boom of AI, where it is supposed to cater to leading to a lot of job losses across sections, it is now an idea which is being toyed very carefully and very frequently in the policy circles. In this context, when we see the launching of a universal basic income like scheme, we need to look at the perspectives that how it is relevant today, and especially for women, which are also, in light of this AI storm, they are more exposed to the vulnerabilities. If we see this recent Anthropic report that has just come, they have highlighted that women are 55% of all the people who are exposed to the high risk zone of AI led job losses. 55% of those people, or 54.8% of those people, are women. And when we talk about the zones where the jobs loss are not such exposed, which are in unexposed zone, in that case only 38% of them are women, 62% rest of them are male. So AI would lead to job losses more prominently in women. In light of this also, women are supposed to get more benefits from the state governments, from the central government, in terms of a social security net. But let's leave AI aside, and if we move backward in time of history, social and historical reason also emphasize that we start from the Antyodaya, as Mahatma Gandhi himself highlighted, that you start your chain, how it would impact the last man in the queue, and that last man apparently is a woman, because she has been facing the brunt of inequity in the society. She has been the one who has been doing the unpaid care work in homes. If we talk about the time use survey report, they highlight that 84% of all unpaid care work is done by women, and they are not paid money for it. If we talk about the time that they spend, on an average in India, a woman spend around 305 minutes every day, whereas a men spend only 88 minutes on this unpaid care work. While men would be doing economically productive activities for which they are getting salaries or monthly incomes or profits or remunerations, women are not getting anything. So whatever time that they are spending, it is highly valued, it is back-breaking, but then it is not contributing to their remuneration. They are lacking economic opportunity due to this. If somebody was to account of this whole unpaid care work that they do, it would come out to around 15 to 17% of GDP as per estimates. Now, also, if some women are working, there is also a issue of lack of gender parity there. So they need certain kind of support mechanism from the state to ensure that there is greater gender parity in income of both the genders. And this has been recognized in this scheme of Punjab government, where they are giving a monthly payout of 1000 rupees at least to all women of Punjab. But this is not a new thing. We saw that happening right from the year 2013 when Goa was the first state which launched a scheme. We saw that happening in Tamil Nadu, West Bengal, where Tamil Nadu was framing it as a rights grant, that you as a woman are supposed to get money because as a right. West Bengal initially identified it as a unpaid contributions being recognized by the state government, that yes, you are doing the unpaid work at home, let me give you the wages out of it. And this has been a consistent phenomena. We saw that happening in Madhya Pradesh also, Maharashtra also as Ladki Behan Yojana. We saw that in Haryana as Lado Lakshmi Yojana. We saw that in Punjab now Mawatiya Satkar Yojana. And now in Bihar also we saw certain amount of dolouts, certain amount of cash being given to women of Bihar. 10,000 rupees was being given to women of Bihar for starting entrepreneur experiments. Thus, women being paid money out of the state exchequer is not a new thing, but Punjab has taken things to a greater level by expanding its targeted coverage to 97% of the total women population of the state. Is it fair? Is it just and legal? According to Supreme Court, in the Subramaniam Balaji case, if we saw, they identified that if these are made as election manifestos, it is not illegal, it is not a corrupt practices as per the Representation of People Act. They identified that yes, they are considered as freebies, but then it is not illegal to do so, because that money would come out of the consolidated fund of state, which is then paid by the taxes of the state. So state government, because they are being elected on the mandate by the people, they are well within their rights to give so. And then Election Commission of India itself gave certain guidelines that if you want to implement such scheme, you must be very clear about where and how you would be financing them. So they gave such guidelines in the year 2014 that parties must justify the promises, they must disclose the financial implication of such decision, and they must specify the sources of funding, that how they would be financed. Having discussed this, we also need to identify that it is not a per se a bad phenomena. We need to identify that there is various benefit that come out of this cash transfer scheme. We need to identify that the society has been inequitable for the women, and if certain schemes are correcting this structural gender inequity, it is something that is laudable. If we see that women labor force participation rate is very low compared to the national average, only 35% of women are working in economically productive activities compared to the 58% average, then they are not having any alternate means of earning, they are not having any alternate incomes. So if they are getting money, it would help their cause, and also it would reduce the feminization of poverty as well. If we see that women, even if they are employed, they are paid less wages compared to their male peers. They are paid around 30 to 35% less as per the data from PLFS, which is Periodic Labour Force Survey. Also, we need to identify it from the ethical terms, because it is a gratitude of a compassionate society where we are trying to empower women with agency. We are giving them an economic power to take decision, because we are putting money in their pockets. They are not supposed to be living their life as a dependent on somebody. They are individuals who have their rights, who have their autonomy. It would boost the household productive consumption as well, because women, when given money, they are more bound to use it on productive aspect of education of their children, or health improvement, or enhancing the nutrition of themselves as well as their children. So it is bound to have a net positive effect on the society. That would be reflected in the better social indicators. For example, the maternal mortality rate. Also, from a long-term perspective, from a rural perspective, if you see that in India, the social security is resting in the land ownership, and women per se do not own much of land. Around 13.8% of all land owned by the society, only 13.8% is the amount of land that is owned by women. Rest of it is owned by men. So they do not really have something to fall back upon. If such money is being given to women, it is likely to enhance their social security. Then we are trying to simplify a fragmented welfare scheme. We are seeing a lot of leakages that happen. Instead of money, we give them products or goods or services. Then there are a lot of corruption that can happen. Now that the money is being directly credited to their bank account using the JAM Trinity, Jandhar, Aadhaar and mobile, it is supposed to be more transparent, it is supposed to be more efficient, plugging the leakages that were happening earlier. Then it is acting as a savior for the dignity of women who are not in the position to fend for themselves, women like widows women, elderly women, or the PWD women. they are supposed to get a new lease of life by this monthly dole given from the government. It is also showcasing the social maturity that is happening in a society, that we as a society are promoting people, promoting citizens with rights, not as somebody who are just beneficiary of some government scheme. Now that they have money with themselves, they are free to choose whatever they wish to choose, and then it would enhance the quality of life as well, because service delivery would be done on the basis of cash payment mechanism. They would choose whichever service provider they want to choose. In case of government giving them all the services, then they do not have that choice and there is monopoly of government services. Now it would enhance the life, quality of life, as well as we would have greater consumption in the society, greater consumption in the economy. That would also boost the GDP of the state. Thus, there are multiple benefits out of this cash transfer scheme that we can see today. But we also have to be concerned about the challenges that come forward. If we take the case of Punjab itself, as a state, Punjab is reeling under the debt, and such fiscal extravagant scheme, which is taking around 10,000 crore of the state budget, is something that need to be looked with very careful effort. We see that Punjab as a state has 4 lakh crore worth of debt, and this is only further going to enhance the fiscal deficit of state of Punjab, because it is then just a revenue expenditure. It is an expenditure that is going to happen every year without creation of any long-term capital asset. Thus, it is supposed to not bring down the debt to GDP ratio of the state, which is already very high compared to the national average. It is resting around 46% of India. 46% of debt to GDP ratio. As per the FRBM limit, it should ideally be less than around 20%. If we see that since they are not promoting any productive capital investment, we are pledging our future for this present consumption, which is something which is violating the golden rule of public finances, that there must be any debt that we take, it should be taken only for the creation of capital asset and not for consumption. It is also creating a dependency culture, that if we are trying to promote something that people are being dependent on the government for these cash handouts, then we are creating certain situation of political untouchability of these things. For example, we have in present system the MSP scheme, and even if the government wants to roll that back, they cannot, because of the political pressure that would come, because people, the farmers, they have become so habitual of it. Now we are also trying to woo them to this new scheme, and now once that is done, there would be no going back from this scenario. We are also not identifying that the public service infrastructure, it is indispensable. Anyway, you have to invest in the public service infrastructure. So if you are going to give more money to the hands of the private people, then you would be finding difficult to finance such public service infrastructure like hospitals, schools, roads, bridges, canals. This anyway would not be able to be built, which is we are seeing a shortfall of it today. And it might have a risk of conspicuous consumption. We never know that if women are being given such money, whether they would really use it for the productive use of nutrition or education or better clothing or better necessities of life, or whether they would squander that money off into conspicuous consumption, into lavish parties, or maybe even alcohol abuse or substance abuse. There are exclusion error also that might have crept up into this scheme as well, despite 97% coverage. For example, the migrant women, who are actually the poorest of the poor, even they are not being targeted here. And when we are spending so much money here, we are taking something away from other part, which is known as the opportunity cost. In this present scenario of Punjab budget, they have only allocated around 2800 crore for the industries and commerce. That means industrial growth would not happen as much money that they are spending for this Mawa Tiya Satkar Yojana. They are spending 9300 crore for them. And if we combine the budget allocated for health as well as industries and commerce, it is still less than this amount. So we are not developing any productive capital for the future. Then what should we do? We need to ensure that there is a long-term development plan that is associated with this immediate rollout of plan. That when we are transferring cash payment to these women, there must also be some more assistance toward the skill development of the women, so that they are not always this dependent on the government handouts. They would become empowered in themselves. Then we need to design such scheme within the clear fiscal responsibility scenario. We need to have a lot of clarity in the fiscal glide path, that how the government is going to reduce its debt over time period. There is need for enhancing the tax revenue that they collect. there is enhancement of revenue received should be enhanced. Then we must have rationalization of these inefficient subsidies. We saw last month Punjab government being in Supreme Court asking for amendment to the rules of the central government, where they had given excessive subsidy to the electricity sector. Thus, there need to be reformed on certain aspect where inefficient subsidies are being rationalized so that productive capital investment could be done. We need to enhance the social infrastructure by promoting the health and nutrition program, enhancing construction of schools and colleges and hospitals, the creation of assets for women and by women, so that when we are giving money to the women, there must be certain saving plan that they are made aware of. There must be enhancement in terms of financial literacy, that women should be spending their money very wisely. They could be linked to certain self-help group which give them this habit of saving money for future asset creation as well as for emergency situations. Then we need to institutionalize this impact evaluation of the scheme, that when they are giving money, there must be certain empirical evidence that come to them that yes, this money has been spent wisely and it is actually leading to greater human development indicators. There is a progress on those aspects. If that is done and empirical evidence is brought for this, then such scheme could even be rolled out at a national level also. Thus, having discussed this, this is a practice question for you. Kindly attempt it and get it evaluated from your mentors. We move to the next topic. Next up, we have election of a Rajya Sabha member, the rules, the process and the politics. It is a very interesting topic. If you see the norms of election of a Rajya Sabha member, it is given in the Article 80 of the Constitution. Article 80, which tells us about that there should be 250, maximum 250 members of Rajya Sabha, out of which 12 of them would be nominated by the president because they have some special interest of art, literature, social sciences or etc. But 238 of those members would be elected, and when they would be elected, the manner of their election would also given. How are they going to be elected? As per Article 80 clause 4, the manner of election of Rajya Sabha is by proportional representation and single transferable vote, which is PR and STV. This is a unique thing compared to the FPTP system that we have in Lok Sabha. Now, what is the difference? FPTP means first past the post system. That is the very simple, very normal manner of election that happens in the case of Legislative Assembly, also the Lok Sabha, where somebody, if let's say 3 candidates are in fray, they both 3 of them are running for election, the one who is getting the most number of votes, the one who is getting the most number of votes would be getting elected. It doesn't matter whether he is crossing the 50% marks or not. It is just that he is supposed to be getting the most number of votes. On the other hand, when we have this PR system or proportionate representation system, they are supposed to get a proportion of the vote to get elected. There is a quota, there is a limit, there is a threshold that they have to pass to be qualified as being elected. And this is the quota system that exists in this Rajya Sabha election. And also there is a possibility of single transferability of the vote, where if one member is getting elected and he had more number of votes than that was initially required, he has this excess amount of vote, then it could be transferred to another candidate who is in fray. Thus, it is a transferable system where excess vote can be transferred. Thus, this is the difference between the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha vote. What is the eligibility for being a Rajya Sabha member? If you have crossed 30 years of age, if you are a citizen of India, if you are taking this oath of FASI, which is faith and true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of India to ensure the sovereignty, unity and integrity of India, then you are very well eligible to contest the election of Rajya Sabha. Given the fact that any other condition which is prescribed by the parliament, you are fulfilling that condition also. So, in the Constitution itself, under the Article 84, there are only such 4 conditions. You remember, 84 gives us the 4 conditions for Rajya Sabha election. Under this clause, under this part where parliament is authorized to give any further eligibility conditions, then you are supposed to bring those conditions as well. And using this power of parliament, they have amended the Representation of People Act 1951, under which they have given one more condition, that to be elected as a member of Rajya Sabha, you have to be a registered elector in any of the parliamentary constituencies. Earlier, there was a condition that you can be an elector only in the state, you can fight election of Rajya Sabha only from the state where you are registered as an elector, where you are registered as a voter. If now, after this case of Kuldeep Nair case that happened in the year 2006, Supreme Court has actually upheld that it doesn't matter that where you are registered as a voter, you can still contest Rajya Sabha election from any other state as well. For example, Dr. Manmohan Singh, when he was last elected to the Rajya Sabha, he was elected to Rajya Sabha from the state of Assam, of which he was not a registered voter. He was registered as voter somewhere else, but he got elected to Rajya Sabha from state of Assam. So that is something that you must remember, that you can get elected from any other state, but you must be registered as a voter in any of the parliamentary constituencies of India. Now that being said, what is this manner of election and what is the problem in this? How it is different from other elections and how politics come into fray? You see that the terms of the Rajya Sabha member, it is not given in the constitution itself. Parliament again was authorized to identify that how much tenure should be given to a Rajya Sabha member, and they took up that opportunity to give 6 years of term. Now under the section 154 of Representation of People Act 1951, if a member who is chosen to fill a casual vacancy, a vacancy that would have happened due to the death of certain member which was for 6 years, let's say after 3 years that member died, then a new member is elected in a by-election, then he would only serve the remaining term of 3 years, not the complete 6 years again. That's how it works as per the section 154 of RPA. Now what is concerning now, why we are discussing it now, is that Rajya Sabha elections are being held in various states. We have that happening across 41 seats of 10 states that is happening. It is happening in Bihar, where Honorable Nitish Kumar is getting elected to Rajya Sabha. We are seeing that happening in Haryana also, where 2 seats are vacant. Actually, Haryana has 5 seats for Rajya Sabha, and Haryana's Legislative Assembly has 90 members, 90 MLAs are there. Now these 90 MLAs would be electing electors for Rajya Sabha for 2 seats only, because 3 seats are already filled. So we need to identify, we need to understand about the formula how this election of Rajya Sabha happens, because this is a technical thing. And in the year 2023, they have already asked such question about presidential election, because presidential election happened in the year 2022. So there is high likelihood that they might ask about how actually the election of Rajya Sabha happens. For that, a formula is given to us by the constitution itself, that to win, a candidate should get a required number of votes, which is known as quota or preference vote. The formula is total number of votes upon number of Rajya Sabha seat plus 1 plus 1. How does that work? Let's take the example of Haryana again. We saw that number of vote is number of MLAs. So the number of vote would be 90. And how many seats are vacant here? We said seats are 2, which is number of Rajya Sabha seat vacant. Then it is 2. And then they said add 1 to it. So 2 plus 1 we would do. And to whole of this sum of this product that would come, we are supposed to add 1 also. So if we divide 90 by 3, it would become 30, 30 plus 1, that is here. Then we see that quota is 31 seats. So to get 1 Rajya Sabha seat, any political party would need a 31 MLAs to vote for them. The situation in Haryana is such that we have 37 MLAs from Congress and 48 MLAs from BJP. Now it is very easy that Congress would see 1 seat and BJP would also might get 1 seat. But the problem that happens with Rajya Sabha election is that there is no anti-defection law that is applicable here. So the members of the Legislative Assembly, the party MLAs, are not really bound to vote for their parties as per the mandate of the party. Even if they choose to vote against the wishes of the party, they could still not be disqualified. And why would that happen? That would happen because the proceedings of this is considered as the proceeding outside the house. The voting for this Rajya Sabha is not considered as a proceeding within the assembly, within the house. It is not considered that. Because it is not a proceeding within the house, the provision of anti-defection law does not apply here. So the MLAs are free to vote, and we have seen instances where MLAs have actually done cross voting in the favor of other parties. So if any party, for example this party, it needs only 31 MLAs vote for getting elected in 1 seat. Then this party is having 17 MLAs seat which are vacant. Thus, there might be a possibility of cross voting happening. Also, we need to be very sure that the nota provision, the none of the above provision, it is also not applicable in case of Rajya Sabha election. This is something that has been upheld by Supreme Court again in the year 2017. So, no nota, no anti-defection law is applicable in terms of Rajya Sabha election that happen. But you be very sure that open ballot system is practiced. So, if Rajya Sabha elections are being held, while there is no anti-defection law, the party may still issue a whip and ask the voters, ask those MLAs to showcase their ballot, that to whom they have actually voted, while they would not be disqualified. only a disciplinary action might be taken against them, but it is necessary that they showcase their ballot, they showcase that to whom they have voted. If it is in case of independent MLAs, they are barred from showing this ballot to anyone, but for other MLAs from a party, they are supposed to showcase their ballots to the authorized agent. This is supposed to rein in, this is supposed to be a safeguard against the anti-party activities, to ensure the party discipline in the Rajya Sabha election as well. Although it doesn't seem to be working very well, because there is no disincentive largely for the party MLAs to not vote against the party's wishes. They can do whatever they want. Their seat of MLA would still be confirmed. They would not be disqualified from their membership of the house per se. So this is Rajya Sabha election for you. Moving to the next topic of counterfeit drug trafficking happening in the region of Delhi as well as the neighboring state of Haryana, Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand, and how it has been highlighted as per a recent raid by the Delhi police as well as the Narcotics Control Bureau. The term that was in news regarding this drug trafficking was a term known as tramadol. It is very important from our parents' perspective, because they have a habit of asking such events, such terms in news. For example, one year they asked about triclosan, whether it was a food preservatives, fruit ripening substance, reused plastic container or toiletries. Answer that year was toiletries. But you need to identify that tramadol, on the other hand, is a synthetic analgesic drug. What does this mean? Synthetic means that it is not a natural drug, it is not a drug that is manufactured from the natural ingredient, rather it is processed in lab using a base material of opium, which is a drug, and it has an addictive properties. It is analgesic, that means it is pain relieving. It is used as a medicine also, it is used as a pharmaceutical that relieves the certain chronic pains in adult. But the extended usage of it in terms of its addictive effect, people are abusing it in terms of substance abuse is happening. So the use and production of this drug is regulated under the Narcotics and Psychotropic Substances Act 1985. Under this NDPS Act, its sale as well as production is regulated. Now this tramadol was being used not for medicinal purposes but for leisure as well as drug trafficking case it was involved. So Delhi police along with the Narcotics Control Bureau have cropped down on them, have found the intricate illicit network that is functioning around this region. And there have been certain seizures that have happened very recently also. For example, in Gujarat, 9 crore worth of content of such drugs was seized near Mundra port. We saw certain illicit tablets have been seized in the region of Parvanu in near Himachal Pradesh. So this has been the case, but from our parents' perspective, we need to identify with the Narcotics Control Bureau. We need to be able to solve question if NCB related question come in prelims. What is NCB? The idea of creation of such body come from the DPSP, which is talking about Article 47 regarding prohibition of consumption except for medicinal purposes of intoxicating drugs which are injurious to health. That is why states like Bihar, Gujarat, they have banned liquor consumption, and thus banning of such intoxicating drugs is part of our welfare state program under the directive principle of state policy. Also beyond our constitution, as per international convention also, because India is party to this convention against illicit traffic in narcotics, drug and psychotropic substances. This is a UN led convention of which India is a party. India has ratified this convention and has also made a national law which is known as this NDPS Act. As per the provision of this Act of NDPS, they have made a central authority for exercising the power and function of central government under this Act. Although the body is created for, it is given for in the Act, it is the NCB per se is not considered as a statutory body. It is actually a body under the administrative control of Ministry of Home Affairs itself. Thus, it was constituted in the year 1986 when after 1 year of this Act was passed. What is the role of NCB? If we see that it majorly coordinates the action of various offences with under the Act of Custom Act, Drugs and Cosmetic Acts. So the implementation of such acts relating to the drug trafficking, this is the body that enforces such acts. It is also responsible for implementation of various obligations that come under various international treaties that have been ratified in India or may be ratified in the future. It is also supposed to give assistance to various concerned authorities for facilitating the coordination as well as universal action with respect to the prevention of drug trafficking. Also, it coordinates with various statutory organizations as well as the government agencies within India as well. For example, we have associate body of DRI, which is Directorate of Revenue Intelligence. It functions under the Ministry of Finance Affairs, under the Department of Indirect Taxes. It is actually coordinating with such organization to ensure that India as a society remains drug free. Thus, this was the NCB for you. Moving to the next topic of fertilizer and food security in India. India is a self-sufficient country in terms of food grains. We are the second largest producer of food grain in the world. We are the largest producer of rice and second largest producer of wheat per se. But in terms of fertilizer, which are actually a sine qua non of modern agriculture, we are highly import dependent. And that thing of import dependence has come to light in light of recent Iran-Israel war, as well as the Russia-Ukraine disruption, because India per se imports a lot of quantity of goods from this state of Hormuz as well as the Persian Gulf. This region being blocked by the attacks, it has actually dried our supplies of fertilizer. Why it is so important? If you see the three major category of fertilizer, for example, the muriate of potash, almost 100% of this fertilizer we are importing, and Russia is the primary supplier of muriate of potash to India. In terms of phosphatic fertilizer, for example DAP, we are having significant import dependence because we do not have as much domestic production. Almost 67% of the total consumption of DAP that happens in India, 67% of that is imported. We are having 6.5 million tons worth of it is imported, and only 3.5 million ton is produced domestically. And in that case, Saudi Arabia is the largest supplier of DAP. In case of urea, which is also the most consumed fertilizer in India, around 10 million ton of it is imported, and import dependence is still high, around 30%. In that case, it is reversed, that 70% of urea that is consumed in India, 70% of that is produced within the country, only 30% is import dependent. In case of phosphate, it is 67%. In case of MOP, it is 100% import dependence is there. So be very sure about these data. They might frame such questions in the prelims where they ask you the degree of import dependence of various fertilizers as well as the major suppliers of this. As we saw, MOP is majorly supplied to us by Russia, whereas these other are supplied majorly by GCC country, which are under attack right now. And not just this, you see that Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, these are also very famously responsible for domestic production of these fertilizer in India. How? Because if we see that urea plants which are located within India, they are also not working at as per their capacity because of inadequate gas supplies. And where are we getting this gas from? Again from these GCC countries. Because Qatar is the world's largest producer of natural gas, India has a lot of dependence on Qatar for import of LNGs, and because we are not able to get as much LNG in India, that is why our domestic plant of production for these fertilizers, they are also not working. We see fertilizer sector is the largest consumer of LNG in India, after which is followed by the city gas distribution, which comes on the second number, and power production, which comes on the third place in terms of the use of this liquefied natural gas. India being dependent on Qatar, Oman and UAE, because these are the largest exporter of LNG. Thus, even the domestic production is being stifled due to this war. Domestic production plants being temporarily shut before the peak marketing season come for maintenance issue. That is another reason why India is facing a lot of problem of shortage in terms of fertilizer. And this is going to have a lot of impact on the not just the availability and production of food, but also the prices of the food. That would impact the consumer very highly in terms of accessibility of such food item. Right now also we are having a lot of issues with respect to the nutrition in India. We saw around 53% of Indian women being anemic. So if anything was to happen to the supply of this fertilizer excess, it would have a very high impact on the nutrition availability, on the aspect of hunger, and would defeat the race towards the SDG 2, which is zero hunger by 2030. So there is much more need that certain local indigenous plants which are located, for example, at Kota, Rajasthan, as well as the Hindustan Urvarak and Rasayan Limited plant located at Gorakhpur. These are utilized to be functioned at full capacity, and alternate sources of LNG should be explored from the countries like USA as well as Canada and Russia to ensure the domestic production of such fertilizer could happen. Moving to the next topic of grants of Finance Commission. As per Article 280, Finance Commission is a constitutional body that functions as a balancing wheel of fiscal federalism in India. But also under Article 280 Clause 3 Clause C, Finance Commission is also obliged to give recommendation to augment the consolidated fund of state to supplement the resources of the municipalities based on the recommendation of the respective state finance commission. So the municipal corporation, the urban local bodies, how their finances should be strengthened is one of the prime responsibility of the finance commission as well as the state finance commission. In that aspect, 15th finance commission as well as the recent 16th finance commission have not been doing very well. Why we say so? Because as per the data, we see that only around 0.12 or 0.13, around 0.12 or 0.13% of the GDP is something that we allocate for this urban local bodies. And this is shocking because given the fact that the urban centers in India are the largest promoter of economic growth, around 67% of India's GDP as well as around 90% of the total government revenue that come from the urban center itself. So it is very natural to expect the same amount of return being going to this urban local bodies, but that is sadly not happening. The 15th Finance Commission only allocated around 1.2 to 1.3 lakh crore worth rupees. At that time, the GDP of India was 200 crore rupees. Now, India's GDP has doubled after these 6 years. So, the amount has increased to around 3.56 lakh crore, but on an average, as a percentage of GDP, it has largely remained the same, which is around 0.13% of the GDP. So, you may remember only this number, that Finance Commission grant for urban local bodies is around 0.13% of GDP, which is clearly not adequate because there are other issues associated with it also. Why? Because as per the time, we are seeing that population of cities is also increasing. Right now, we have around 31.7% urbanization rate in India. That means around 1/3 of the people of India are living in urban areas. But by the year 2031, it is supposed to be reached at another level. Around 41% of all population of India would be living in urban areas. And we are already seeing the crunch of infrastructure happening in our urban areas. We saw that happening in Noida, where one engineer, one techie had to lose his life because of the faulty infrastructure. We see that happening every year in cities of Bengaluru as well as Gurugram, which are urban flooded every year. We are seeing the issue of pollution happening in Delhi. All of this could be solved to a certain extent if only we had the fund availability as well as functionary available to these urban local bodies. The Finance Commission's idea of giving more fund is thus clearly lacking. It is not being recommended, it is not being done because of other issues associated with this Finance Commission recommendation as well. Why? Because the lot of funds that they are giving are in the nature of tied fund. What are tied funds? Basically, these tied grant mean that they are supposed to be utilized for the specific purpose that the central level body, which is a finance commission, it is only deciding it for the urban centers, which is defeating the purpose of local governance because they are not identifying with the local need of the people. What exactly is ailing the city of Shimla might not be the same problem in the city of Kerala. Thus, there must be greater enhancement of autonomy being given in terms of how these funds are to be used. Although these things are not bad per se, water supply, sanitation, waste management, these are good. But then there must be greater flexibility to these urban local bodies where they can prioritize on how certain funds would be used. We also need to highlight that these Finance Commission grants, these are basically grants mandated under the article 275 of the constitution, which is basically statutory grants. So they are granted as per the constitutional provision and they must be upholding the spirit of constitution, which is decentralization after the 73rd and 74th constitutional amendment. Also concerned is the 16th Finance Commission having linked certain performance based grant that are to be given, that if these bodies are adopting the fiscal discipline, if they are having regular election to the local bodies, if state finance commission is constituted, if the audited accounts are presented, only then certain grants would be given. Although in all sense it is a step forward, it is a positive and laudable steps, but if in case of implementation it is leading to crunch of funds for immediate need of local bodies, then there is need of a rethink. From our pillars perspective, we need to identify that there are two kinds of grants. One is a grant of statutory grant, under which they are giving this grants by Finance Commission. There is another kind of grant which is given in the constitution itself, which comes under article 282 of the constitution, which is basically the discretionary grant, which are given at the discretion of the union government. What is the difference? While statutory grant are recommended by the Finance Commission, the discretionary grant are decided by the union government or the planning body or the ministries. While it is mandatory, these discretionary grants, as the name suggests, these are discretionary in nature. They might be given for certain specified functions, for example, mainly for revenue deficit support, welfare of SC, STs, welfare of tribal areas. On the other hand, discretionary grant might be given for development schemes, centrally sponsored scheme and special assistance. So the clear difference of article is something that you remember. 275 is for the statutory grants, which is mandated under FCs where Finance Commission are recommending. 282 is something discretionary for the union government where they would do as they deem fit. Moving to the final and the last topic of the day, where agriculture sector, especially the fishery sector, is reeling under pressure again from this Iran-Israel war that is happening in West Asia. How it is impacting? If you see that India, especially the state of Andhra Pradesh, which is the largest producer of fisheries in India, it is exporting fishes to various nations, around 128 nations across the world, and West Asia being a major consumer of these dishes. Now, when these fishes are not being imported by these countries because of disruption, because of instabilities, because of choking of the global choke points, then it is disrupting the livelihood of the farmers, fishermen who are dependent on this. How? If we talk about the numbers, India is the second largest fish producer, contributing 8% to the global output. It is ranking second in terms of aquaculture production. It is leading in terms of shrimp production as well as the export of shrimps. And it is also the second largest producer in terms of capture fisheries. Not just this economic numbers, even 3 crore fishermen are dependent for their livelihood on this fishery sector. This showcases the importance of fishery sector for India. And it is also contributing around 8% or 7.43% to the agriculture gross value added. Around 7.43% of this agriculture GDP is contributed solely by this fishery sector. If we talk about the regional distribution of this fishery system, we see Andhra Pradesh is the leading state, where it is leading in terms of inland fisheries as well as in the aggregate fisheries. On the other hand, Gujarat as a state is the largest producer of marine fisheries in India. Thus, it is a well diversified form of livelihood in India. It is economically productive and it is raising a good amount of money for us. Around 62,000 crore worth rupees of export were happened in the year 2023 to 2024. But now it is reeling under a lot of pressure because of the conflict in West Asia. Government on its own have been promoting fishery sector by various schemes that they have launched. For example, the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Kisan Samriddhi Sah Yojana, which is actually a sub-component of the central sector scheme of Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana. It was launched in the year 2024 for a period of 4 years from 24 to 27. It is going to be implemented in all the states and union territory with an estimated outlay of around 6,000 crore rupees. The features of it include gradual formalization of unorganized fisheries. It is allowing greater access to institutional finances so that they are not taking loans from unusual sources which are charging usurious amount of interest from them. Then they are promoting one-time incentive for one crop cycle to aqua farmer for producing aquaculture insurance. That is also being promoted. They are also incentivizing performance grant through fishery sector value chain efficiency, including creation and maintenance of jobs. Incentive would also be given for enhancement of quality. If they are ensuring a certain quality, a certain standard, then they would be given incentive, thus promoting the greater exports, because they would now be meeting the sanitary and the phytosanitary standards of the Western nation. They would also be integrating the various value chain associated with the fishery sector as a whole. This is something that they are being done under this sub-scheme of Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana. In aggregate also, in the last year's budget of 2025-26, they gave a budgetary allocation of around 2,703 crore rupees. That is around 2,700 crore rupees was given. They increased the budgetary allocation by 3.3% from the previous budget. Then the solely Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana, which is basically enhancing the food processing in terms of fishery production, enhancing value chain integration of fisheries, that itself was given around 2,400 crore rupees. So government on its part have been doing whatever it can to promote fisheries in India, but they are as a sector, it is reeling under the external shocks, which is leading the indigenous farmers, fishermen to be able to sell whatever fishery they are producing at a very throwaway prices. This is the situation as of now, which is highlighting us to diversify our export basket from the Western Asia to other nations, for example, Eastern Asia, including Japan, as well as the nations of USA, Canada, Russia. All of them should be diversified and included in our export basket so that we can develop a resilient blue economy. Thank you very much. This was in this session of Analyst. Stay tuned.